So hello, everyone. Charles Banfield here with another Karate Canucks conversation. And this time it's my pleasure to be joined for the first time by somebody who has their own media kit, which makes this next part quite easy for me. So my guest today is Nichelle Laus, who is a self-defense and fitness instructor, media personality, and a mom of four boys ranging, I think, from 18 to about 11 right now. So she's got a busy household. A former police officer with 15 years on the Toronto Police Service. She is now the co-owner of 416 Tactical Supply, which is a small business she operates with her husband, Dave, who's also a former Toronto police officer. And that provides tactical gear required by emergency services personnel to perform their duties. Ms. Laus has a background in boxing and kickboxing, is a fitness expert with many television appearances to her name. Her work has been featured on several media outlets, including, but not limited to, Good Morning America, CTV, Inside Edition, Fox News, the Epoch Times, Rogers, the Home Shopping Network, and many others. She's also a regular guest of Global News Toronto as their resident safety expert, and has made frequent guest appearances on CP24 and Breakfast Television as well. Ms. Laus also teaches self-defense programs designed for women, and recently became an author with the release of her first book titled The Safety Blueprint, A Woman's Guide to Personal Safety and Self-Defense from a Former Police Officer. So would recommend you pick that up. It's now available on Amazon, which is where I ordered it from. In addition to this, she's also done some acting in commercials for Nike and Tim Hortons, and she's recently appeared in a true crime documentary as a police officer. She's also a media personality with over 1.1 million followers on TikTok and more than 100,000 followers on Instagram. And in case she wasn't busy enough, most recently she started a new phase of her career, I guess, as a professor, instructing fitness courses in the Police Foundations program at Humber College. After reciting all of this, I think the word overachiever kind of comes to mind. So welcome, Ms. Laus, and thank you for agreeing to share your thoughts and experience on this podcast, despite your incredibly full schedule. So really appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me.
Were you going to correct me on something? I saw your finger come up.
Going to, and it's not a big deal because we're all a big family anyways, but I did work with Peel Region Police and York Region, never Toronto, but that's okay.
My apologies.
That's okay. We're all, again, like a big family anyways, so it doesn't really matter.
York and Peel Region. Okay, my apologies. All right. I should have known that. I work for York Region as well, not as a police officer, but the corporation for sure. So getting right into this, so there are a few specific topics I'm really looking forward to getting into with you that I've not really explored with previous guests. But let's start the conversation like I normally do by covering some basic details and general background information. So if you don't mind, can you share with us a little bit of background on where you're from and where you grew up and what prompted you to start your martial arts journey?
I actually from Montreal originally. I had a bit of a tumultuous, crazy childhood. Actually, I come from, my mom brought me up basically as a single mom. She got remarried when I was 7 years old, and unfortunately, married the monster, and I'll call him that because I lived through years of abuse and specifically sexual abuse. And when I was 14 years old, I decided enough was enough. And I vowed to myself that no one would ever hurt me again. And it was a very hard time for me during those times. 14 is a very tender age. In Quebec, high school start when you're actually in grade 7, unlike here when you start in grade 9. So a couple of years into high school, it was just a really, really hard time. And I needed something to channel my pain, my emotions, my everything that I was feeling during that time. And I decided I came from like a small city near Montreal, and really it's just a bus ride type of thing. And I decided to go into the city, and I went to a gym called TriStar. It's well known in Montreal, probably well, GSP is from there. In fact, when we were all younger, I used to train with, not with GSP, and you probably know him too, David Loiseau. We
Bozo,
all
yeah.
were in the same, we grew up in TriStar. So they were in one class and I was in the kickboxing class with our old instructor, owner of the gym at that time, whose name is Conrad Pla, who is now an actor too. But I walked into that gym. I didn't know a single person there, and which was really good because it was just me. I could focus, and thankfully being, naturally athletic, I was always naturally athletic, and I took upon myself to take on this new adventure. And I was just so good at it for so many reasons, and it was good for me. So it started really a whole journey of I still call myself a martial artist, so people argue, well, it's kickboxing and boxing. It's not really, like, it's not karate. It's not jiu-jitsu. I'm like, whatever. To me, the mentality of it all, the discipline, the training, the mindset of it all, it just helped me basically on my healing journey. And at the end of the day, I'm still healing. Something like that never goes away. Trauma and people never go away. You just learn to cope. You learn different mechanisms. And really, that's what started that journey. And I can't thank Conrad enough. In fact, no one ever knew my story to this day. I mean, maybe to this day, but I don't talk to Conrad anymore. Once he sold the gym, and he went off to Ontario, I haven't really seen him at all. So he would never know the help that he given me when I was, that many moons ago. It's incredible what like one coach could do for you. One sensei, people just don't know. But that's what started that journey.
Wow. Yeah. And the follow-up question I was going to ask you was, who your main instructors or influences, but I think you've already answered that. Were there others besides Conrad at TriStar or elsewhere that you could point to? Like, I don't know if Faraz Zahabi was there. I guess he's a bit younger than.
He's younger, and Conrad sold the gym to him. So by then I had gone, because what happened was during that time, well, actually, around the same time, I always knew I wanted to be a police officer. And the reason for that too is pretty much the same, almost the same reason. During that time when I was going through all that pain and turmoil, the police were there with me every step of the way. They were literally one of the very few who really supported me in every which way. And I couldn't thank them enough. And what I wanted to do with my life was basically give back to the community like they did, and give back to give back and pay forward everything that I had felt, so that anyone in my career, I could help them go through the same thing. If they were going through something, I could help. I was there. I lived through it. I can, there's just so much that started that young, and that's kind of how I built my life, my life story. And I guess you can say another influence probably was, at the time, was my brother-in-law, who lived in Ontario. Again, because we're from Quebec, he couldn't get on as a police officer, and he actually worked at York Region as a canine officer. So I always looked up to him, because again, he was also not only a police officer that you bounced ideas off of and everything going on. He was a police officer that I also looked up to. And I, at that time, it was definitely Conrad and him in terms of, great influences in my life.
Excellent. And so did they also you said you've always wanted to be a police officer and so on, but did your, passion for fitness and boxing, kickboxing, martial arts, let's just call it, I did kickboxing as well. I consider that a martial art, so
Yes.
We'll call it that for now.
Yeah.
Did that kind of training influence your decision to become a police, like help solidify it? Or sometimes a dream is just a dream until you get that one catalyst that kind of pushes you there.
It's funny that you say that, because it wasn't so much a catalyst. I was just boxing and kickboxing like all the time, every single way. And I knew that even when I would get hired on as a police officer, I would continue that journey and I'd bring it to Ontario. And when I moved to Ontario, I continued it all. In fact, I used to teach, the fellow students at OPC, Ontario Police College. I used to get people together at night and at lunch and teach them kickboxing. I started working here in Mississauga at, oh my gosh, why can't I think of the name? Huff Gym at the time. And then I was doing some kickboxing because back in the day, you couldn't do amateur kickboxing. You can only be pro. So I used to have to cross the border and fight in New York if I wanted to fight. But my training continued here. But in terms of having it being part of me being a police officer, it helped. And only because the fitness part of it certainly helped. The mindset, just learning how to control emotions. There's so many different things other than physical conditioning that help me along my journey as a police officer. But before I actually got hired, my brother-in-law had an interesting point. He said, I think that I know you want to be an officer, but what if you get on and you don't like it? It's possible. And all you've done now is put all your energy into wanting to become a cop, and that's it. He goes, just do something else. Do me a favor and do something else. Take something completely different that you like and do it anyways as your plan B. Because that way, if you don't like it, you always have something to fall back on. I said, okay. And I was young because again, I was, 14, 16 now going on. So I decided to take computer programming. And I took computer programming in college in CEGEP in Quebec. And I was a computer programmer and I did like he said, and around that time was the year 2000 when the world was going to end and everyone thought like, oh my gosh, Y2K. And so I actually worked at Sun Life Insurance as a computer programmer. And I worked on the Y2K team. Oh God, I couldn't, it was okay, but it wasn't my thing. Like I can't sit in an office and work on a computer. I am physical. I need to be out there. That's just not for me, but I did like he said. And from there, I worked there a couple of years and all I did most of my free time there was send out my resumes to become an officer. So, if I knew that if I didn't like it, I can always be a computer programmer after, but I never went back once I left.
Yeah. Got a taste of it, didn't like it. So
no, yeah. It's a great job, pays really well, but it wasn't for me.
Yeah. Well, they're the superheroes of tomorrow, I think. The programmers, especially with the advent of AI and with it's definitely a desirable skill set to have,
yes,
an IT kind of background. So, I don't want to assume, but I'm going to guess a little bit here that, when you got to the police academy, that, the fact that you were training some of your fellow in your cohort, training them in kickboxing and so on, I'm guessing that your martial arts experience was an asset for you when you were there. Or did you have to unlearn? Did you feel you had to unlearn a bunch of things once you got into the foundations part of it?
No, I think if anything, it helped me 100%. And well, not, in so many ways. Reflexes, physical, like I mentioned before, the physical, just being in shape in general. Boxers, kickboxers, martial artists are just so much in shape. I had so much conditioning, just maintaining composure under stress. You strategize, you like when you're going into a fight, you look at film, you analyze, you do all kinds of things. There's so many different things that you do as an officer as well. So if anything, it really helped me. And there's so many, what's the word I'm looking for? Not even comparisons, but even along my journey, not even when I first started, but just so many ways in which I moved in such a manner that you can tell I was a martial artist. And again, okay, maybe get me on the ground. I don't do groundwork, and if anything I do regret, I don't have many regrets. If I do, I wish I would have done more like jujitsu or judo. Not that I could still do it now. I totally get it. If I had more time, I probably would. But just in general, there's so many times where I was involved in, I don't know, in a fight. I just put it a fight or a kerfuffle, and even just something as maintaining my footwork, maintaining my situational awareness, having my hands up all the time. I mean, a lot of people don't just it's automatic for me to do that. It's automatic for me to stand in a boxer stance, as we call interview stance in policing. It's just automatic for me to get into that stance. Whereas I think if I didn't have all that training, I probably wouldn't be as confident as I was. There's a whole confidence thing that, especially and I'll say it, as a woman, you need to have almost extra. And I really, really feel that I was always an asset to my team. And I was always told that. They were never afraid when Nichelle was called on. And I don't mean that as, to blow, to toot my own horn, but maybe I am. But they're like, oh yeah, Nichelle's coming, because they knew that I didn't back down. And I was always there to help out,
Yeah, have a solid skill set to back it up.
Definitely, yes.
So how would you then, the training that you did receive when you were at the, I'm calling it the police academy, but, the
OPC, like Ontario
OPC,
Police.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Police college. How would you characterize the close quarters kind of combat stuff, the hand-to-hand stuff that you did have to do? I guess I've not been a police officer, so I'm assuming that there would be, some controls, some wrist locks, for cuffing and that kind of stuff. How would you characterize that training that you did as a new police officer or recruit and throughout your career? Is it more of a grappling, more of a striking, or of a
little bit of both? Because the course, the close quarter stuff, yes, you're getting in there and you're learning kind of specific techniques on how to, if you're going to arrest somebody, what to do with their hands, their arms, or do an arm bar to get them down, that type of thing. Verbal is huge, right? De-escalation and talking, and of course, but if you have to put your hands on, it's hands on. Learning different new techniques, basically takedowns, even how to, hold someone and just basically restrain them if you're walking them, even though they are handcuffed. There's a method, there's a way. Are they similar? In some ways they are. Not that I would do this in kickboxing or like a specific hold, no, but I think again, it's more like holding myself, like just the way I present myself, the way I talk to somebody, it's just more confident. In terms of striking, of course, when you're learning how to strike, let's say using your baton, yes, there's different strike motions. Is it the same as, boxing? No, not really, but the movements are kind of the same. You're trying to get your suspect or the person you're going to arrest basically to comply. Knee strikes, shin strikes. So it's not full on roundhouse kicks I would have liked, but similar. A lot of TACCOM, and we practice a lot of TACCOM, practice a lot of different ways, and of course, different transitions. So transitioning, from your pepper spray to your gun to your baton, just learning how to kind of even do that, or even when we're learning how to shoot, like it's second nature. So in some ways, is it similar to martial arts where you have to do things over and over and over again so that they become second nature? Drawing your gun, you should be able to just draw it, put it back, draw it, put it back. So in some ways, it was, I want to say easy, but it was easy for me because I feel that those skills I learned before and they really helped me.
As a safety expert, a teacher of self-defense, and obviously an author on the topic of self-defense for women, would you say that self-protection considerations for women differ greatly from those for men?
That's such an interesting question. I feel, yes, they do. Bottom line, I feel they do. To what extent, I guess it depends on the person. But, physical considerations, for example, let's say you're taking, a man and a woman, physical strength. typically you're going to have a man that's stronger. So, right there's that difference there. Endurance and agility, I guess, can be another. I mean, I find women's self-defense techniques or women's way of, dealing, let's say in a fight, their emphasis is usually on like speed and endurance and agility. And rather than prolonged, like engaging in it, you know what I mean? It's just usually guys will be able to last a little bit longer just because they're just bigger and tough. Physically, really. The other thing I guess you can say is just growing up in like a cultural thing, women are perceived more vulnerable as women, more vulnerable than men. They, for the most part, just women go through much more in terms of, being harassed or being always, I don't know, just, I guess I can't think of the words, but
more targeted maybe than men.
Yeah, there you go. More targeted in general, right? Because this is a touchy subject. I get it, but I'm just talking about in general and my perception of things. And I think women are just more, I don't know, like, let's say now on the emotional side, fear conditioned. We are taught to, fear or fear violence and, just always be more, let's say, on the lookout. And I mean, this is something I teach all the time too, like in terms of safety tips and whatnot, because, I focus on women's safety because, most, and I don't have exact stats, but usually it's men targeting women and it's mostly men, attacking women. Can it be the other way around? Of course. But there's just this heightened emotion in terms of threats and potential threats. And I just think there is a difference, but it's how you handle those differences and how, you perceive them as a person that's going to change that. And I feel like there was a lot, when I was working, but it never bothered me. It never affected me, should I say, never affected me at all. But again, I could say I was a little bit different. I came in prepared. I came in confident. I came in as like, everyone's like, oh my God, like, I was the fighter. I came in with already kind of like a nice, a nice media kit, so to speak. Right. So it didn't affect me that much.
Right. But when you're teaching it, then the techniques and so on, the technical aspects of it, like the situational awareness and, all of that vigilance, those skills I think are probably universal, if you're, regardless of your gender. But in terms of the techniques that you teach the women in your classes that you deliver,
yes,
or would they be different than techniques that you would teach, say, a mixed group of men and women or men only?
So I don't teach. We don't teach, well, it's me and my business partner, Kevin, in the self-defense. So in self-defense, we actually just teach women groups. So
okay,
I can't really answer that, but they probably would be different. Yes.
So what would be some of the things that you focus on then?
In our
like
class?
Soft targets like throat and things like that, or yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. So we go over techniques. Well, we first of all, we go over like mindset. So we go over mindset, situational awareness. What is self-defense? And I know that sounds so, simple, but getting people thinking that self-defense isn't just, learning to protect yourself in a physical environment. Like we always say, okay, what do? You get in your car and the first thing you do is reach for your seatbelt and put it on. Is that self-defense? Technically, because you are protecting yourself from harm. So think, step outside the box for a minute. Don't always just focus on, getting people to think, getting people to be a little bit, practice their situational awareness. So we do talk about that in our classes, just getting really people to think a little bit more. And then of course, when we talk about the self-defense laws in Canada, which are so great, like it's a gray area and a lot of people are just so confused about them. But when we start when we start doing our actual physical, like the physical portion of it, we go over strikes, our open palm strike, our elbow strike, we go over knee strike, we go over shin kicks, using those as, distractions, but also, distraction techniques, but also just warming them up. And then we'll go over some self-defense escape techniques, such as a wrist grab, such as a ponytail grab, a choke, bear hugs. What else do we do? Do your basics. Like if someone's on top of you, trying to think, but those type of techniques or escape techniques are the ones we use. Very simple moves. We don't want to confuse people, because it's something that, again, if it's not what you do every single day, all the time, and you don't practice, you're not going to remember. You need it to be second nature. And we tell people, please practice these, but I think people's intentions are to practice. They just probably don't do it as much as they should.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we try to just keep it simple.
Right. So things like yelling fire and stuff like that, does that come into play? Or
we yes and no. Screaming in general, like just anything, like no, or fire has been one of those, but it's mostly just no, and just making as much noise as you possibly can to create witnesses, and that's what
to draw attention. Yeah.
just to draw attention, and just get out of there if you can. Like that's the key thing.
Actually, something you just said in the answer to my last question there is a good segue into one of the things that I want to talk about here. And I guess your perspective from being a former police officer. And that's a topic that's popping up a lot more recently, is around the legal implications for defending yourself. So in particular, there seems to be a fair amount of confusion around, like you'd insinuated there, around the extent to which we citizens are legally able to physically defend ourselves and others from somebody else being, aggressive. And, in fact, I recently watched you. I don't know when it was filmed. I think it was maybe a few months ago, but I watched you participate on a panel discussion on the Zoomer TV show.
That's
that explored that exact topic and that. So my question, where I'm going with this is, as a former police officer and as someone who teaches self-protection to others, what should martial arts practitioners and teachers know about self-defense laws to keep themselves out of trouble?
I think they really need to know it like the back of their hand, and because they're so confusing. Self-defense laws in Canada are so confusing, and I think everyone needs to know, basically, more so to be, if you're going to be teaching other people, to make sure that they're teaching it correctly, because a lot of people think they can't defend themselves. It's not the fact you can't defend yourself, but it's knowing when to stop. So, you are allowed to defend yourself if you're in imminent danger, or if you feel like you're in danger, or you're safe, you're safe, you feel unsafe, or, it's just, you have to make sure that that's what you articulate later to the police. If you're feeling unsafe and someone is coming at you and you fear for your safety, of course you can protect yourself, you can protect your property, but you can only do that until the threat is gone. So basically, if someone's coming at you and let's say you're in your car and someone's coming to ambush your car and you put it in drive and you hit them by mistake. Okay, well, yes, you have to say, I was in fear. I saw them coming. I didn't mean to run over them. I did. Do you kind of reverse and roll back over them? No, that would be bad. Or if you stop the threat by whatever it might be, as a weapon of opportunity, you have a cell phone in your hand and you hit them over the head. And if they go down, you have to stop at that point. You can't keep beating them over the head with the cell phone. You have to stop. So I think it's learning. I often say in my classes is that you have a credit card and that credit card has a limit. Once you hit the limit, that's when you need to stop. So it's, trying to, and it's hard because a lot of people just don't understand the fact that, how we can't carry self-defense tools, or you can't carry anything for that matter for the purposes of self-defense, but you can carry them for other reasons as long as you can articulate what that reason is for.
Right.
So that's where the pepper spray comes in, and can we not have it? The tasers. Now, some of these things are prohibited. Yes, we are not allowed them, but some items that you are allowed to carry or that you carry on your person, and now that could be something as easy like a cell phone, a pen, or here's a pen here. Actually, it's a tactical pen, actually. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm not, well, I know why I'm carrying it, but I'm not going to say I'm carrying it for that, but you have to say, no, I'm carrying this because it's a tool to write with. If I happen to use it, if I'm getting attacked, it then becomes a weapon of opportunity. And as long as you can articulate that, then you should be okay. I say should because you just never know, right? Knife, same thing. Are you allowed to carry a knife? Definitely. But you can't carry it for the purposes of self-defense. You can carry it because, you open boxes all day, you cut fruit all day, depending on whatever it may be. But that's why you're carrying it. So I think once people understand those rules, they're a lot more comfortable with what they can and cannot carry.
Right.
Pepper spray is a huge one. We sell at our store dog spray. It's dog repellent, and we have bear spray as well. I often tell them, you are carrying that because you're scared of dogs. You're carrying that because you think a bear is going to come. Well, maybe not in the city. I always say, don't carry bear spray in the city, but if you're living up north and,
It happens sometimes, though.
sometimes
They do sneak
there's a
in.
bear that comes and steals your car. No, but so if you can just articulate why you have it, and honestly, it should be, and if not, it just becomes a weapon of opportunity. And yes, you're allowed to protect yourself. Just stop when the threat is no longer, it's no longer a threat.
Yeah, and I think a lot of, I guess, where things get blurry or confused is being able to recognize when a threat has passed, right? So on that the Zoomer show that you were on, I remember there were a few comments that were made by some of the other panelists that I wasn't quite sure was correct. One of them was the lawyer, and he was saying something along the lines of, and I'm not trying to impugn anyone, but I think in the moment, maybe he misspoke. He was talking about if basically a group of teenagers come into your house and you go after them with a golf club, that you're in the wrong. And I'm thinking to myself, having been a teenage male, having hung out with other teenage males, remembering some of the stupid stuff I've seen done by groups of teenage males, I don't know if brandishing a golf club is out of bounds personally. Like if somebody's doing damage, the threat of it. I'm not saying you beat somebody to death with it, but if you come after them with the club with the intent that you want to scare them off or let them know that you mean business if they don't leave, especially if they're breaking into your home, like the example that was given. I can't help but think that would be justified under the way that the law is written, right? Because it's reasonable within the situation, right? It's kind of where it comes down to.
And I was just going to say that it really does depend on the situation. It depends on so many things. Like, you may fear for your safety more than I feel for my safety, or vice versa. My level of, my level of what I perceive as a threat may not be the same as yours. So as long as you can articulate that to the courts, and as long as you can say, well, I feared for my life and that's why I did that, and I stopped when the threat was gone, and again, you should be okay. There was that story, I think it was actually we played it on the Zoomer. Oh, I want to remember.
The shop where the guy came in with the baseball bat?
Yep, that's the one. And so that story there, well, it's because the guy followed him outside. So like you said, it's remembering those boundaries.
Yeah.
So I think he caught him stealing. Was that what it was? And then he
came in, he actually struck him with the bat. I just watched it last night, so it was kind of fresh.
Good. Okay.
So, no, he struck the guy with the bat. I think the guy was strung out on something, meth or whichever. And then he left. They wrestled the bat from him, got him outside, wrestled the bat from him, and he walked away. And then the storekeeper came up behind him and hit him in the back of the head as he was walking away with the bat, and then hit him again while he was down.
Yeah.
So yeah, the line had clearly been crossed. Emotions were obviously very high, but the line had been crossed there for sure. That one was
And
really cut and dry.
that's really the hard part when you're in it. And oof, it's tough. And it is hard when you're in that motion and you're going and going. It's hard to stop because you go into almost like a tunnel vision, right? And so many factors can affect that tunnel vision. Your past, your past, whatever, like experiences with trauma, your past experiences with fight. So you may just go into this tunnel vision where you just go a little bit, I would say crazy, but I don't know the word for it. So it's really hard. But again, having my martial art background, I feel that I'm just more in control in situations like that.
Mm.
High stress situations, I feel that I'm really good at. I feel like I'm calm at, unless they're my own kids. Or like, it's one thing when but like it happens all the time. If I see a situation or someone needs my help, I just go into this, I wouldn't even say mom mode, because it's like my first responder just comes out and I just get like, okay, you call 911, you do this, are you okay? And it happens so many times to me. I just become this, I don't know, like I become a cop again, it never really leaves me, even though I'm not working anymore. You just never lose that.
Yeah. So thinking back again to the martial arts instructors that are essentially teaching their students how to fight.
Mm-hmm.
And, is there something specific they ought to be saying to their students, to try and ensure that they avoid, say, dueling situations, where you're going to get arrested, whether it's consensual or not, you're likely to be
Yes.
arrested because, disturbing the peace or whichever else, right? You know, I teach karate as well, and I don't say I struggle with it, but it's how to square the techniques that you're teaching them, which are meant to inflict pain and damage,
Of course.
with what do you do when you walk out of the building, walk out of the door, and you're out in society and so on. If somebody takes a swing at you, do you break their arm and take their eye, or do you do something else, right? And I don't know, as a, again, from your policing background, is there a set, maybe a little speech that you would recommend, or elements of a speech that you would recommend that instructors deliver to their students from time to time to remind them that this stuff is?
I think that's such a good question. It's never really something I thought about, because I do mention all the time that in a self-defense situation, you do have to stop when the threat is gone. But in the interim, could you have broken a nose, broken an arm? Maybe. Could you get charged? Maybe. Everything's a maybe, because nothing's 100%. But as long as you can articulate why you did it,
Mm-hmm.
in my situation, let's say me fighting against you, you're bigger than me, you're taller than me, you're more powerful, you have experience, so I did everything I could. I did everything I could to protect myself. And even if I did stop, and if I hurt you or hit you in the meantime, who knows, I could have had my, stainless steel water bottle in me and oh my God, get away. And I hit you in the face and knocked you out and broke your nose. Well, I didn't mean to. So I think when you're instructing, I think what I used to say that in my kickboxing classes when I was instructing, it's, you can defend yourself, but with your skill, just be careful, because a lot of the times you're just more experienced. So automatically you become, you're perceived as, oh, you're the more experienced, so you should have known better. Well, it all depends on the situation. It's just
Yeah.
tough.
And that was where I was going to go with the follow-up to that was, if our martial artists held to a higher standard, I guess, when it comes to this kind of thing, like, are they expected to have more control? Martial artists are humans, at least the ones that I've met anyway, is it reasonable to expect that they not do what they've trained to do, if they are in an altercation or whichever. Because I think that's also a part where things get murky, you know.
You know, if I, let's say, like hypothetically, I was in a fight, I would use everything I could, all my training, all my knowledge and all that. And why wouldn't because I'm trying to protect myself. Thankfully, my training, I would be able to do it effectively, hopefully effectively. And if I can explain that after, why not? And I don't, and I always say, like, I would do it again. I don't have any regrets as long as I didn't kill anybody. And even at that, it wouldn't, like, it's such a touchy thing because you just automatically go to your training. It's second nature for us. But at the same time, we can control ourselves a little bit more than, let's say, our students who are just like, oh, yeah, I got this, because we have experience. So I think it just depends on the situation. And who knows? And you don't know who you're fighting either, right? You don't know if they have a gun or a weapon or whatever they're going to pull. So especially nowadays, you don't know. So finish them off right off the bat, like, boom, get it over with, because you don't know, right? Sometimes it's not as easy as someone's going to walk up to you and say, hey, give me your whatever. Like, you just don't know. So react quickly, get it over with, and next. That's how I would do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit in there and decide, oh my gosh, am I being too rough? I don't know. It's police have to deal with that too, right?
Yeah. Well, for sure. For sure.
They're abuse of power, they're this, they're that. But again, with the training that you go through and the training, it's you just know. And there's cameras everywhere, and there's people everywhere, and there's body cams, and sometimes that's, I don't want to say a bad thing too, but it's, you become scared. Because a lot of times now is you become scared, like, who's watching, who's videoing, and can I protect myself? You're almost scared to do something because you're going to do something wrong and then get in trouble for it after. It's I would say it's a problem, but I think body cams or videos, or not only for police officers, for us too, they're good. They're good to have for evidence. They're good to have just to have for, like, witness purposes. But in some ways, people are scared. They're scared to do something wrong because, you're going to be held liable, or you're going to be all over the internet now. And oh my gosh,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's tough. It's a tough kind of world right now for everybody.
Yeah. There's lots of scrutiny everywhere, right?
Yes. Yes.
So the last little bit on this piece then, and this might seem like a weird question, but I've spoken to two other retired police officers about this, and they gave me different answers.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious about your take on this. If you are in a situation where you're defending yourself, let's just say, to keep it simple, and there's damage done to the other person, should you speak to the police officer before, or to any of the police before speaking with a lawyer?
So that's funny you say that. In my self-defense classes, one of the things we do say, in that high stress situation, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things that happen. We always say, even if the cops come up to you, they're on your side. They really are. Or, they want to get to the bottom of the story. At the end of the day, talk to a lawyer first, especially now with the body cams on. You don't want to be saying anything that incriminates you, right? Yeah. Even if you were in the right, you don't want to be saying something that later you're going to regret, because in that situation, oh my God, I picked up my phone and I hit him so hard and I kept banging, whereas, yeah, most of the time, if you are being attacked and you're trying to defend yourself and you use that weapon of opportunity and it works, could it have possibly gone too far? You don't know the reason why, but you know what? Talk to your lawyer first. We always say that, because they just want to know what happened. And they truly do want to know what happened, because they want to get to the bottom of the story, but you don't want to incriminate yourself by saying something you didn't mean.
Yeah. So when you said earlier,
There.
so when you said earlier about being able to articulate why, not necessarily would you do that in the moment. You would want to take a beat, take a pause, speak to your lawyer and articulate it to him or her, right? Yeah.
I think what I meant earlier when I said learning how to articulate, I kind of meant more like to your lawyer in court. How should you need to go to court? Or I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even to the police, it depends on like if let's say a police officer walked up to me on the beat and something or on my jog and I had my pepper spray in my hand, okay, why are you carrying that? Or, you get pulled over and you see my baseball bat and or whatever. Why do you have the baseball bat? Oh, because I have a baseball game. Make sure you have the glove and the baseball with that, right? I'm going to a baseball game. So at that moment, articulate, but in terms of a situation like this, yes, to your lawyer, to the courts, but definitely. I mean, if you're having your pepper spray and you get pulled over by the cops or you see a cop and he's like, why do you have your pepper? Why do you have that dog spray on you? Oh, because I'm going on a run and I'm scared of dogs, or, I live near a dog park, for whatever the reason. Learning to articulate why you have a certain, let's say, weapon on you, so to speak. But in terms of an actual fight, altercation, or an incident that happens, yes, lawyer or court system, if it goes that far.
Yeah. It is your right to be, to not speak to anyone.
Yeah, for sure.
Lawyers,
And use that right. Yeah, and you're not being rude saying it. You're actually, you're helping yourself. You really are.
So skipping back a little bit to some of the things you talked about before. So you had, the tactical pen, which I have one of these for all my blazers that I wear at work. I always have one of these with me. And honestly, I like a heavier pen. So it's not because I'm going to go around and, get some DNA samples with the end of it here on people at my work, but it's just that little added level of just a little added function, I guess, to it, right?
For sure.
I have, a little flashlight here that I use. It's very high powered. It's got a strobe function on it. I use it for when I'm walking my dog in the mornings because there's coyotes and there's skunks and sometimes irresponsible dog owners who have let their dogs just kind of run around. So I've had this on occasion, and it's also very, tactical. It can be used almost like a Uara, or like Kubotan kind of type thing. And then this one, I don't walk around with this one. My son gave me this. It's it's like a money clip.
Okay.
Right? It's a Gerber money clip. It's made of metal, and it has a great little letter opener in it.
Love it.
So things like this, and from the perspective of you, the business that you and your husband run.
Yes.
The tactical supply and so on. What would you advise in terms of for law-abiding citizens, obviously law-abiding citizens, an everyday carry type items? Are there anything aside from the pen and the flashlight, or you said the dog spray? Are there other things as well that you would sell to civilians?
I mean, you pretty much nailed it on the head there. I mean, I always recommend knives too, but again, because, people think they can't carry knives. Well, a lot of people don't. You actually can, but
I use them all the time.
It's why you carry them, the pen, same idea. Yes, it's a beautiful tactical pen. Your flashlight, great example. I think people are worried about self-defense tools or self-defense items, I guess tools, but really what you have to think about is almost personal safety tools. So, again, it's the purpose why you're carrying them. So I love the flashlight idea, the pen, of course. I mean, you can also carry. So what we've been recommending, and it's been working amazing, is there's non-lethal. We have a non-lethal weapon. Now it's not considered a firearm. It's basically, what I want to compare it to is
those giant BBs type thing.
kind of, yeah. So they're just rubber balls.
Yep.
And they only shoot, I think it was 300 and I don't want to say this incorrectly, but 360 as opposed to 500, which is considered a firearm. So it still shoots pretty good. It has rubber balls, and it is powered by CO2. So
Yes.
basically you put the cartridge in the bottom, and it's not considered a firearm. So you can actually load it, have it loaded, and have it, by your bed. It's non-lethal and it's not considered a firearm. So why do you have it? Oh, because I practice target shooting with my rubber bullets, So again, an option. We have flashbangs at our store as well, which so many people have been coming in for. It's just a
So
distraction.
you can sell those to civilians.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
We
So
have,
flashbangs, just to clarify for those who might not know what they are, these are like a loud, well, they're exactly how they're described. It makes a loud noise and a disorienting kind of a flash, right? So,
exactly. Yes. It's
but
pretty loud.
there's no frag that comes out from them. Like there's
No
no.
frag. Now we do have fragmented also. So we do have, and again, they're just like little, I would compare them to almost like BB pellets. Those would cause a little bit of a mess if you're gonna, like, let's say, throw them in your house, because they may kind of wreck, or they're almost like they'll hit your skin, or they may, mess up the paint in your house and whatnot. But I love the flashbang because it literally is just a flash bang, and it causes a little bit, yeah, and it's more of a deterrent. So what you do is, I wish I had one on you to show you, didn't even think about it, but it's in the shape of, if you can imagine, what a almost like what a grenade, that kind of style, okay? But it's a little bit more, I mean, there's different variations of them. So you hold the spoon on the side and you pull the pin, and as soon as you pull the pin out, you have about 2-3 seconds before you launch it. Like, once you launch it, sorry, then it goes off in 2-3 seconds. And so what people have been coming in for, especially because of all the home invasions and the carjackings and whatnot, you come in, you just kind of launch one at one of those, and it's more of a deterrent. Like, people will hear that, there's suspects coming in your house, they hear that, and they'll should, again, I say should take off, because they don't know what it is, right? So there's indoor ones, there's outdoor ones. Well, we say indoor and outdoor just because a little bit louder, or you can launch them into your driveway. They're not reusable, but there's a lot of people who have actually come in, or a couple, I shouldn't say a lot, a couple of guys who came in who showed us home video of when they're used ones, and it actually worked as a great distraction. And they're like, I'm buying more. And it's incredible. So there,
And they're legal for civilians to have
yes, yes.
for home defense, right? Not
Yes.
so you wouldn't walk around the park with a
No.
a utility belt full of these things and setting them off in the woods, right? That's not a.
I mean, could you? I guess you could, but we tell people it's more for home defense, and even our, those non-lethal, weapons I was telling you about, they're not considered a firearms. Even them, they're a little bit more on the pricey side, but the bullets are reusable. So if you literally want to sit there and practice, target shooting with your, cartridge, and put it in, and you just, if you can find the pellets, put them back in, or find the rubber bullets, put them back in, and you just keep using it over and over again. So they're great defenses. Are they every, I mean, are you going to walk around? No. And the weapon we have is orange. So it's clearly not like a firearm. It's an orange, I want to say gun, but it looks like a gun. It shoots like a gun, but it's not considered a firearm. So you wouldn't really walk around them, but they're, again, more for home defense. Distraction techniques, deterrence. What else? I guess a multi-tool is also a popular one, but it's not really, well, again, I know we can't carry self-defense items, but more in everyday carry, a lot of people do carry multi-tools. And again, very useful. Considerations to everyday carries, I don't know, goodness, even first aid essentials now, it's just never know, right? But that's more, I mean, I'm talking more in the first aid world now. But I think I'm trying to think of what else. That's all I would carry, really. Like, I have my three, I got my knife, or actually on one of my, I do sell, is one of those personal safety alarms. Now I don't have it with me, but it's a
Yeah, the push
safety
button, and it's
alarm.
got a real shrill kind of noise that it
Yeah, you
makes.
pull the pin and it just lets out this, like, it emits like this loud shrieking noise, and it has a little flashlight on it. So in fact, I have a whole keychain that I sell when I go in my self-defense courses. The keychain has a Kubotan on there, but to break glass, wink, wink, that's why you're carrying it. So it has the Coupeton on there, has a seatbelt cutter with a glass breaker also. It has a whistle just for like, a distress whistle. It also has what was I just talking? Oh, the personal safety alarm. So that has that on there also, and it all comes on a keychain. So you can take the attachments off and use them separately or use them all together. So I often say yes, definitely as an everyday carry. And of course, the dog spray. Like number one, I would say everyone should have dog spray because you never know when you're going to run into a dog,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Sure.
And those are, I mean, maybe not for indoors because you can contaminate like, where you are, but outside, amazing.
So here's a question. I like to ask as many people as I can. In your opinion, what's the single best reason for anyone to train in the martial arts? So your background, boxing, kickboxing, you've done some other stuff in your police work. Is there a single best reason for anyone to do so?
Single best. God, that's a good question.
Or
Because
maybe a top three if you can't narrow it down to a single best,
discipline for sure. Because you you can't buy that. Mindset. Is that kind of all in one? I don't know. And I mean the physical part of it, of course, but it's more, I think, well, for me, I think for a lot of women is the empowerment and the confidence you get, right? Because physical activity, you can go to the gym and, what I mean, you could do that at the gym. But I mean, I would say it's more for a woman anyways, the empowerment and the confidence that you get along with the skills that you need to protect yourself. The physical stuff is a bonus. So, yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Mine anyways.
Yeah, well, I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all. So, do you have a favorite technique or concept, or maybe a most important concept if you're going to talk about concept? When it comes to the training that you either deliver or that you undertake for yourself. Do you have favorite techniques that would be relevant in a martial arts situation or a self-defense situation? And this could be physical or it could be something else.
I guess, well, I guess it's kind of a two-part because you're right. If it's physical for me, just because I'm used to it, it'll be like a quick, like get it over with quick, as it, a nice punch right in the face and a nice right hand, and then probably a front kick. Because if I do decide to do like in my technique, like a roundhouse kick, you just never know how that can stick or hit. But a nice front kick anywhere is like an unexpected one. A great one too, if you're in close quarters and you can't do that, a nice shin kick for distraction, because it's always something I used in policing all the time. Because no one ever expects you to do a shin kick. They expect that kind of, they expect your hands or they expect something else. But a shin kick is a nice distraction because you immediately go, oh, like, and as soon as that you go, oh, you can get them with something else. So you come back with like that secondary option. Physically, I think also like physically, but mindset, get in their face right away. Because for me, I think if someone's going to attack me, they don't expect me probably to fight back. So if I get right in their face right away, it's almost like, oh my God, don't give them time to think. Just do it. Just act, and always like situational awareness. I can't pound that in people's head enough.
Mm-hmm.
Look around, figure it out. You know how many times like so many people get complacent and they don't think it's going to happen to them or in their community or at their local grocery store, department store. Anything can happen anywhere at any time. Just be prepared. Always be prepared, no matter what time of day it is. And don't think it can't happen to you, because the one thing that I notice, like, the trend or whatever, is whenever something happens to something, they're like, I just never thought it could happen. And had I known or had I been aware, I probably could have protected myself more, and it's so true. So long story short, yeah, always be prepared, always be ready, and get to it right away.
So on the topic of you know, situational personal awareness, through your policing career, I'm sure you've seen a lot of different scenarios where, people have kind of been jumped or attacked or, accosted in some way. Are there commonalities in terms of mistakes that people make? Like, everybody nowadays, has earbuds in, they got their phone, their hoodies on, and they're, not paying attention, kind of thing. But aside from that, like, are there places or situations where people tend to make mistakes on a more common basis than others?
I think common mistakes or common places things happen are just usually some places where alcohol is involved, of course, and that's just, I mean, that goes without saying because just things get a little silly when, either you're intoxicated or, and that could be with drugs too, right? Places, it,
I'm thinking like car parks.
and I was just gonna say, I was
Yeah,
actually just gonna say like shopping mall parking lots or subways, parking lots, underground parking lots, all that thing. I don't think people are aware, but it's still not, they really don't realize how unsafe it is, I think, or stairwells. Oftentimes, like you go through should I take the elevator in this strange place? Well, I'm scared of the elevator, so I'll take the stairwell. The stairwells are like you go for the battle between is the elevator safer or the stairwell, and you just really don't know. I battle with that myself all the time. Thankfully, I'm just again ready for whatever option if it presents itself. But definitely parking lots, definitely, places where there's going to be also people around too. So just, and more in terms of events getting out of hand, crowds, concerts, that type of thing, where, I even tell my kids all the time, oh my gosh, don't go to the mall, guys. Don't go to that mall. I don't want to say what it is, but don't go to that mall. Go to the other mall. There's just too many issues there, or don't wear your nice things, because you're gonna get it robbed right off your back type of thing, right? So just kind of being aware, and it's unfortunate that you have to think like that, like, don't wear your nice things around, don't drive your nice car, don't wear your nice handbags. But unfortunately now, yeah, nowadays we live in a day where they're just gonna come at you for the nice things that you have.
thinking back over your career, and this could be your martial arts career, your professional careers, whatever. If you could do it over again, is there anything you would do differently? Or another way to answer the question is, if there is there anything that you know now that you wish that you knew sooner?
Get a good accountant.
Financial self-defense, eh?
No, okay. Well, yes, because now that I own business, yes. But in reality, there is everything I've done, I don't have any regrets whatsoever. I really don't. From my heart, because everything, good or bad, is a learning experience. And if you didn't go through anything bad, you can never learn on how to improve yourself and how to get better. So I don't have any regrets. But if I did, it would definitely be like I mentioned before, I would take some groundwork. Get uncomfortable with feeling uncomfortable. For me, anyways, I need more groundwork. Let's fight on the floor. Let's wrestle. Let's do some of that stuff like they do in jiu-jitsu and judo and all that ground. That would be my only thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm great standing up, but get me out down there and that's when I panic. So hopefully that's why I like to get it over quick, like I said before, because you get
Yes.
down
Yeah.
and like, oh no, what, right? So that's it. But other than that, no regrets.
Yeah. So I'm guessing then in the police, the OPC, when you were doing your training there wasn't a lot of groundwork in the training, like get up drills and stuff like that, or was it more focused
There
on controlling somebody else and getting them to the ground?
pretty much, which involves you getting down on the ground too, but just not as much emphasis on in the fight, rolling, the mounts and all that stuff on the ground. I mean, at the end of the day, you get into a fight, you're going to get into a fight and you're going to survive it because, like for me, it's mental. However, technique would improve, having the technique would improve the fight immensely because it'd be over quicker.
Mhm.
My mindset's going to keep me there, but technique would just help a little bit, get things done a little bit more efficiently.
Do you have a proudest martial arts related moment, or maybe
Hmm.
not, doesn't have to be just martial arts, it could be through your policing experience as well. Any kind of prominent eureka moments where, let's say a bubble was burst and suddenly you understood something that you didn't before? Do you have anything that comes to mind with that?
That's a good question. I wish I knew these before I had time to think about it. This is that
I couldn't
quick.
give it all away to you.
I know. No, I don't think so. I mean, one of my, I guess, proudest moments would be, well, only because, no, I don't even know. It was way back when it'd be like, well, like, a couple of things, but more like vanity, I guess. I mean, being on a Nike commercial is pretty bad. And that was,
Badass, yeah, for sure, yeah.
I wasn't sure if I could say, but yeah, it was pretty badass. And that was like, I was chosen because, they were looking for, I guess, someone specific, but I still had to, audition for it. And I was in 4 Nike commercials. And I mean, back in the day, that was pretty cool. And that allowed me to pursue my dream of policing, really, because it gave me enough money to fix my eyesight because I had really bad eyes, or I used to wear glasses and I couldn't get on with the eyesight I had. So I needed money to get my laser surgery in order to get on. And so, that moment was just proud because I'm like, hey, who gets to be on a Nike commercial? Um, what else? Like in terms of something that would have happened, I remember back in the day when this girl, I was a very, very humble fighter. I'd be those type of person. I just trained, I did all the technique. I was just very humble to get there. And, I just depended all on technique. And I remember there was this girl, she came and she goes, hey, how long you been fighting? And she was like, I'm like, oh my God. She like, and you don't talk to your opponents, right? But we were in like back in the day in little,
Yeah.
I can't remember why, but at the time how long I had been. And I go, what about you? And like humble me. She goes, oh, I just got out of jail. And I was like, and she had all the tattoos and oh my God. So I went up to Conrad. I'm like, no, 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 I'm not fighting. No, I'm not fighting. I'm not fighting. No. And don't I go, whether it was my technique or I was just scared to death, I went and beat the snot out of her. I even busted her eardrum in the fight. And I was like, and he's like, you see, you don't worry about what people say. And I was like, I was so proud. I was like, oh yeah. Eh? Like, I remember thinking, oh yeah. But I was just, that was a proud moment, but that was so long ago. I mean, in terms of fighting, anything else, I don't know. There's so many proud moments in my life that I'm happy that I do, that I accomplish because I'm a go-getter, and I literally don't stop when I have something in my head, and I go. I'm proud to have my boys, proud to have my family, I'm proud to, all the things I've done and accomplished. I never stop. I mean, I just turned 50 and I'm still, I was on 8 fitness cover magazines, and there's a proud moment because one of the photographers that I was shooting with goes, no, you're not pretty enough to be in our fitness magazine. You remind me of Oprah. I'm like, oh, okay. I nailed out 8 covers after that. It was just insane. So it was a nice, like, FU moment. You know what I mean? So in that industry, there was,
Yeah.
obstacles that you just have to crush along the way. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, congratulations to you on all the success you've had. I've listed off the media kit stats, if you will, and your varied career that you've had, before, during, and after policing, and I really appreciate you agreeing to come and speak with me today. Before we sign off,
Mhm.
is there anything that you wanted to add that we hadn't covered, or any details around like where people can find you or your business and so on?
Um, I still do everything that you listed before. So you could probably the easiest way to get a hold of me is probably my website, because once you go to my website, you can have, self-defense Nichelle, you can have fitness Nichelle, or you can have, media Nichelle, depending on what you need from me. I do motivational speeches. I do my self-defense classes. I not only host them at our store, I can go mobile as well. So if you have a group that you want me to go to, as long as it's within the Greater Toronto area, I can do that definitely. And my store is located in Toronto, and we basically, serve police, military, and any law enforcement or any emergency personnel. And we're right down in Etobicoke, and my store is called 416 Tactical. So either way, my website is nichellelaus.com, first name, last name, really easy, as is my social media. I just keep everything really easy. And then my store, 416tacticalsupply.com. So you can pretty much reach me anyway.
I'll be sure to put the links in the description when I post.
Oh, great. Thanks.
Post it on YouTube and so on. So that's great. Well, thank you for that. I'd also, thank you for like the work you've done, throughout your career, and the work that you continue to do, I guess, to keep, other people safe, as a former police officer, as a self-defense instructor, and also somebody who, provides the tools and equipment that are needed by those that are tasked with keeping us safe, the emergency responders and so on. So, really appreciate that. It's been a genuine pleasure speaking with you today. I'm really honored that you agreed to participate on this podcast, and hopefully it's not the worst interview you've done. But,
you got me on a few questions, I do have to say, but it was fun. No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, no, thank you very much. Thank you.